Africa is on the verge of a new battle, not one fought with weapons, but with lies and influence operations. Good evening, my name is Maia Mazurkiewicz and welcome to the Anatomy of Disinformation. The world is changing and there is a fight going on for every country and region. Across Africa, disinformation is rewriting reality with the use of AI, fake experts and fake accounts. And the result is the same everywhere. Trust collapses, tensions rise, and truth becomes optional. The rise of disinformation in Africa is no accident. It's fueled by history, local power struggles, and regional conflicts. It's often shaped by foreign influence campaigns. In the end, it's a battle for control. And it affects not only that continent. Our first guest joins us to talk about that and more.
Anna Masłoń-Oracz, PhD, Assistant Professor, holder of Jean Monnet module Afro-EU, SGH Warsaw School of Economics. She is a senior researcher and international strategy expert with over 20 years of experience in Europe, Central and Eastern Europe and Africa. Professor Masłoń-Oracz's work focuses on international relations, geopolitical influence and strategic development across African states, with particular emphasis on Russian and Chinese influence operations and disinformation strategies.
Anna, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. We are at the times of the global power shifts, and Africa is one of the places where disinformation and influence operations are taking place. And who is the major actor that tries to take over Africa?
Thank you for inviting me to this program. So, as a general, I would say that mainly China and Russia as the main power of disinformation in Africa right away. Of course, we have other global powers like Turkey, United States, United Nations or European Union, but they are not using the disinformation power as it is in the narrative of Russia. Not only nowadays, but it also was before the narrative of the full scale of in Ukraine. And right now, there's even more powerful tool in Africa. So, in my opinion, these two countries, like Russia and China, as a main power of disinformation, what is really happening globally.
And when it started, can you pinpoint the time?
Sure. In Russian doctrine, we have to emphasize that they actually putting a lot of, I would say, sphere that information is treated as a, I would say, battle space. And for many years, for Russia, using information was the kind of key of how they actually manipulate the perception of the societies, and on the other hand, how they create the information within society. The flagship, I would say, phenomena is Central African Republic. Well, here in Europe, we have our heroes like featured as a main character in Central African Republic. The Wagner Group, which is the hard power of Russia, is also featured as heroes. So they are using these two things, these two tools, the hard power, this is Wagner Group, and the information power.
And the Wagner Group is in these cartoons as a hero?
Well, yeah. Imagine that in our cartoons, it's like
soldiers from Wagner groups. They are portrayed as the heroes supporting Africa.
They are portrayed as the real and the people in Central African Republic. They really do believe that Wagner Group is a group that can really, we have to, emphasize here in this interview that in the Central African Republic, they are like in the 30 years of the conflict. So they are willing to stop it. So if you have the group that promise, that someone will stop that war, they will believe in that.
So they are at one point making promises that they stop the war in African countries, and then the second time they are getting African citizens to fight for them in Ukraine.
True, that's the another issue that we have to emphasize, that in Africa, that's the youngest population in the world. And those people, when you have like the generation of the 16 or 17 years old, they want to have their, I would say, way to live their life. No one else can promise them to have the better life. Imagine you are 16 and someone is promising you that you will have the good quality life, you will have food, energy, you will have the space to live.
And they will do everything for this.
Exactly. What would you choose? So it's very, I would say, tricky, and especially for this European-centric, I would say, approach here that we are having that in our conversation. It's very difficult to understand what the poverty means. And we are asking ourselves why those people are going to be catch in these Russians, I would say, fields or whatever. And I'm always asking, if you have the option, are you gonna die here, they're in Africa, or you gonna fight for something, for your better future? What would you choose?
And Russia very well knows how to exploit the vulnerabilities also in Africa.
Sure.
And looking at across the continent, French are the ones that are losing their influence the most. Why is that?
Well, in international relations, we say that France without Western Africa wouldn't be France nowadays. And that's a fact. Russia and China using its perfect way to emphasize why the African countries need to stop the kind of relationship with the French people and the French domination in Western Africa. Especially like in Mali, or like the western part, like in Sahara, and so on. But of course, it's like we know this narrative of the Russia and China using in Africa, that actually there are the 3 points: neocolonialism, Western domination, and trying to reinforce the EU, I would say, domination, so-called, into the region. And they are absolutely working on the, I would say, the motives of the people who actually doesn't have anything right now.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ukraine warns that more than 1,400 fighters from 36 African countries are now fighting for Russia. But across much of the African continent, the picture of Russian aggression against Ukraine remains blurred. This report takes us to Kenya to explain how Russia's full-scale invasion is being perceived today and why it may differ from the European perspective, even if the consequences are dire for all.
According to authorities in Nairobi, since 2022, around 200 Kenyans have fought or are still fighting on Russia's side in the war against Ukraine. One of them was athlete Evans Kibet, who says he came to Russia for a sporting event, but was instead spirited away to a military training camp and sent to fight in Ukraine. Now, he's been captured by Ukrainians and is a prisoner of war.
I realized that it was a military when they took me to military camp. That's when I realized this was a military contract.
What did you say to them?
But not only that I signed that contract, also I signed this guy who took me there as somebody who can control everything in my account.
Many young Kenyan men were recruited through job advertisements run by private agencies, offering work in Russia as security guards or manual laborers. The promised salaries ranged from $1,500 to as much as $7,000 a month.
There are people who go there and they're cheated. You know, people lie to them. You are told you are going to get a job in Russia. Yes. Russia is seen as a European country.
According to experts at the University of Nairobi, the deception was easier because Russia is widely seen as a positive light across many African countries, without the burden of having a colonial history on the continent.
In terms of how they are perceived, that they were never, the need of colonialism in Africa. And when African countries were fighting for freedom, political freedom, Russia sided with them.
That is why Russia's war in Ukraine is often misunderstood by the Kenyan public. While the local media cover the invasion, they do not provide an explanation of its origins. With the positive image of Russia in Africa and the promise of lucrative jobs, it was an easy move to press Kenyans into the Russian army.
We are unhappy about it, and people are urging the government to make arrangements for those people to come back. Because it's, to some extent, it's almost like people being cheated. In some sense, it's almost like trafficking, because when you take somebody to another country...
There still might be more than 1,400 individuals from African countries serving with the Russian army on Ukrainian soil. Recent footage from the frozen front line shows what Ukrainian officials believe are fighters from Cameroon.
Rwanda shows us that disinformation isn't just an online problem. It's a societal one. This African country knows better than most how dangerous disinformation can be. In 1994, manipulated media helped fuel one of the worst strategies in modern history. Our next guest joins us to explain the lessons his country has learned from its difficult past.
Professor Anastasiy Shiaka, ambassador of Rwanda to Poland. He is a Rwandan academic, politician, and diplomat who served as his country's Minister of Local Government. He is the founding CEO of the Rwanda Governance Board and the developer of the Rwanda Governance Scorecard, a national index created to spur accountability, government efficiency, and service delivery.
Shaka, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Maya, for the invitation.
Thank you. And today's episode is talking about disinformation in Africa in particular, and around the globe we see various influence operations and disinformation affecting, especially during elections time, but not only. So Rwanda was having elections last year. How did you deal with the issue? Have you been exposed for many?
Thank you so much. I think disinformation is, it can bear some different names depending of where you are. In some part of the world, it is called interference. But in the case of Rwanda, and first and foremost, let me put it upright, and disinformation, regardless of where it is coming from, it is bad. It is a bad thing. So when it comes to Rwanda, we have had a lot of it in years back, many years back. And actually could say the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, really when you look at it, originates from disinformation that propagated ideas of negative otherness that oppose the people of the same nation, speaking the same language, being on the same land, sometimes of the same families, but creating some sort of, some of them are not Rwandans, others are more Rwandans than others, and others have some different origins. And the crystallization of those ideas has actually resulted into the negative otherness that led to the genocide of 1994 genocide. So elections last year, as I said, our elections were elections, and for Rwanda, actually, we have put up measures to make sure that our elections are conflict-free. Our political process is consensus-based, and because of those answers that are tailored to our situation and our problems, we have become able to manage our situations.
And you work with civil society organizations,
Absolutely.
for example?
They are part of us. They are part of us when it comes to building the nation and the reconciliation and creating unity and a unity of purpose. We are together. Civil society, government, private sector. We have some structures. Joint Action Development Forum is a mechanism that actually working with all those entities, both national and international NGOs, around the people for development.
You're posted in Poland, and influence operations in this country definitely focus on polarization of the society. And as you said already, 1994 was due to the polarization that led to the extreme. And regional media were also involved in this disinformation campaigns.
Yes.
So what are the main lessons that you are taking from the difficult past?
First and foremost, I think consensus building is much better than confrontation, especially when it comes to politics and to political actors and political parties. Second, each situation is different. So we have rejected the approach of us taking solutions coming from anywhere else, whether in the north or wherever else. I wouldn't advise anybody to take our solutions without testing if they will be applied to their context. But in the context of Rwanda, the main reasons we learned from the 1994 genocide and disinformation that led to it was that unity and reconciliation was the only option to get out of it.
And how did you proceed with it? It wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy, and it is still an ongoing process, but we see results. We are a country that have been able to build security, to create social cohesion, to engage each and every citizen to make sure that it is a process that is fully where each and every citizen is participating. Participation of those concerned is of paramount importance. Second, it is important to look at issues that created problems at root causes, which we looked at those negative ideologies and we addressed them, not only among the political class, but also bringing them down to the people to look at it. And the three was an element of responsibility, meaning if people have committed crimes, using whether they were drained into it by bad politics or bad politicians, but there was certain accountability, people-based participatory justice that also helped to find solutions. But the big part of it is that ownership of our processes. Whoever, international partners, countries and others, they can't replace us in building our own future. They can come in and support us. So we are the main players, and we want to keep being main players of our destiny.
Russia is spreading disinformation and bringing influence operations across Africa. Do you see those influence operations in Rwanda as well?
So I wouldn't, I think, let's put it, so the way the aspect of this information is perceived in the European continent and in this part of the world is not necessarily the same as is being perceived in our part of the world. Secondly, as I have just explained, most of African countries are facing disinformation, but that disinformation does not necessarily come from Russia. Thirdly, in some of the countries that are facing interferences and problems, they have them with their past, their former colonizers, for example, and we know Russia didn't colonize. Nevertheless, we know Russia, like many other countries, have some political interest on the continent. Are they good? I will not comment on that. But what I can say, any interference from the outsiders that doesn't take into consideration the people on the ground is definitely not a good thing. As far as Rwanda is concerned, we have managed to make sure that we remain a country, a member of the UN family, and working together with all the countries of that family, whether they are from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, as long as we have that, we share that common good, we share the mutual respect. And as far as I am concerned, we are not affected to the extent that I would go on the media and say we have so and so disinformation. We have the disinformation that affected us are related to our past and our history that I have just explained. And unfortunately or fortunately, Russia was not part of that equation. It is an equation that came from somewhere else. That's why I said our perspectives might be different, which doesn't mean we don't understand what people here in the region are going through.
Shaka, the last question.
Yes.
So, do you think that reconciliation and things that you are doing is the resilience building? And can you give maybe 3 examples that perhaps other countries can also work in terms of building the resilient society?
In post-conflict societies, reconciliation is an imperative. And in the context of Rwanda as a country, as I said, where we believe and we know in our past, possibly not very immediate past, we are one people. We speak the same language. We belong to the same social fabric. Unity is absolutely of essence. So other countries, we know we are not the only one in the whole world that have attempted reconciliation, and some other countries have attempted reconciliation and it works. When it works, it doesn't mean it is easy, but the contrary of it is terrible. So that's why without even saying we have done this, we have done that, but resilience is a part of the journey. It is not an easy task. You can imagine neighbors, one have killed the almost entire family of his neighbor, and you are telling the other neighbor, please, can you shake hands? It's not an easy task. But building resilience, building that hope, bringing these people on the table will help us finding solution. The solutions that have the process of reconciliation that we have implemented in Rwanda is not a top-down process. It is down-up and top-down. It is a mixture of a number of strategies that we tested, and hopefully it worked. And it worked because people accepted it. People accepted to be resilient and to try it, because not trying it was clearly catastrophic.
And that's an important message. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Maia, for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let's see how you can protect yourself from Russian and Chinese disinformation in Africa.
How to protect yourself from Russian and Chinese disinformation in Africa. Verify every sensitive claim. Understand the key narratives used in Africa. Build local knowledge and trust networks. Protecting yourself means strengthening your information habits, digital safety, and situational awareness.
Across Africa, disinformation isn't just noise, it's a strategy. And in a world of shifting alliances, whoever controls the narrative has the power. What happens online now will decide who shapes tomorrow, and how you consume information is all up to you. So remember to keep calm and think deeply.